I'm gone.
Run with a wild crew, they get reckless. Young boy, come up off that neck. We say the trends. CLE be the best. Foreign wish when we slide. Right when the top down, bitch, you high. I'm high and I'm vibing, pumping Zai. My pride is OT providing. Trying to come up on a dial. Distro distributes the Prada. Make it pop like Crisco, nigga, who wanna fry? Got back from Buckhead where they stack bread like a bunk bed. Woofing on the net, boy, gotta be a dust head.
Clown.
Don't get mad, get even. Shorty be with them heathens. Call me JB Bickerstaff. Got some shooters in Cleveland.
Welcome back with another episode of Corner to Copa. I'm here with my co-host, Coach. What's going on, man?
Not much. Hopefully, wish we were hopefully talking about a little bit more progression and success last week, but a couple hard fought games in San Francisco, and I think most of the series in Seattle as well. Just the way some of the breaks go. Sometimes you fall on the right side. Sometimes you just fall on the wrong side.
Absolutely. And the Tigers were able to take the last of the last game of the West Coast swing. We lost two of three to the Giants. We started off really strong. We won the first two games of the Seattle series. The third game, we had a tragic walk-off loss, and we parlayed that into another one in the first game of the San Francisco series, this time at the hands of our former teammate, Mark Canha. And I think that kind of took a lot of a wind out of our sails and stole some of our momentum because, Seattle has a very strong pitching staff. We were able to, meet that challenge and squeak out a couple games, and we ended it on a strong note by beating the Giants. But now we're coming back home. We saw some good things, and we saw some not so good things in that West Coast outing. I think our pitching actually out. I think that the lack of offense has put a lot of unwarranted pressure on a pitching staff and a bullpen that is already pretty depleted. And so it would be easy to say, hey, they blew two saves in the ninth inning. But when it's all said and done, when you got a lot of these AAA, 4A type pitchers, you're putting a lot of pressure on them to make things happen when you can only manage 2-3 runs a game. So, but on the bright side, Parker Meadows has showed every tool that there is to exist. He hit for some power. He showed the speed. He had a top 10 Sports Center home run robbing catch in one of the games against Seattle. And outside of that, Dylan Dingler continues to hit the ball very well, even when it does find somebody's glove, he's definitely stinging the ball. He hit his first home run of his career yesterday, I believe. And the pitching, as far as the starting pitcher, or the maybe not the starting pitcher, but the opener, which we've got real familiar with, they've held their own for the most part. Kiter Montero had a slow start, and he was had a slow start, but he kind of got things together. But overall, I think they're giving us a little bit of a glimpse of what we can look forward to down the stretch. But any other things that you want to touch on?
Yeah, I think you covered most of them pretty well. It originally started, the bullpen had to be used early and often just because of how quickly we found out how bad some of the back end rotation guys were. Maeda completely fell apart almost immediately. Some other guys just didn't perform that well. Other guys stepped in to try and help. Guys like Matt Manning had one or two good starts, and then probably 3 or 4 really below average. So they were having to be used really and often. Skubal kind of took a little bit to don't get me wrong, I'm not taking away anything what he's done, he was just, it took a while for him to kind of find his way through the lineups the second and third time through to become more efficient with his pitch count, so we can again get into the 6th and 7th innings, because a lot of the times he was getting into the 5th inning or ending the 5th inning, with 85 pitches, 85, 90 pitches in 5 innings. That's laborious. That's a lot in 5 innings. But he's done a much better job probably since the last, 6 to 8 weeks, maybe even 8 to 10 weeks Google has. So he's not really had to rely on the bullpen to help get him through 4 or 3 and 3+ innings. They can go get 2+ innings of help. So it's yeah, I mean, let's kind of take it as it is right now. They're 13 and a half games back in the division. They gained a half a game in the wild card over that West Coast trip, which is kind of ironic because they played Seattle, who they have again coming up real quick here, starting tomorrow. Who they're chasing ahead in the wild card standings. So every game matters in that regard, and they're only going to be facing largely wild card potential teams or playoff potential teams here, aside from the Cubs and the White Sox over the next 2 weeks. But they like you said, just the offense hasn't really been there. Guys have been in and out of the lineup, especially the last couple of weeks since the All-Star break, mostly on the offensive side. They're 9-13 since the All-Star game. They're 4-9 against the division, 2-4 against Cleveland, 1-2 against Minnesota, 1-3 against KC. Whereas before heading into the break, they were right around 500 against the division, but they've kind of slipped up. All those 3 teams, they're all in the playoff race right now. They're leading division, and 2 of them hold 2 or 3 wild card spots. So it's tough right now. Like you said, the blown save. We'll get into that later. I don't really think that was a issue of Will Vest, whereas maybe a AJ Hinch mismanage again. To another loss, but a team can only endure so many injuries too. We've tried to not use that as a crutch on this show. These are professionals; these guys are getting paid to do this. They're putting their time in and then some. But when you've got 3 or 4 starters, you've had issues with guys in the bullpen, rotating injuries, guys on offense now. Akil Baddoo's gone down, had to come up because Perez, who may or may not return apparently, which I didn't really think it looked like that serious, but again, we'll get into that later too. But they're kind of, it's kind of a them against the world mentality, and I don't mean it in a sense of they're not getting the respect they deserve. They're just this short in some games. You know what I mean? Just a little bit more on offense, tighten up a little bit more in the bullpen in the late game situation. We're not asking for perfection, all right? There's never going to be another Mariano Rivera, so let's check that off real quick and temper expectations a little bit. But I like you said, a lot of these have been high minor league guys who've gone through the system, and they're getting some of their first or second taste of quality major league arms. So it's certainly been some ups and downs with this team, especially with the core guys. But I think, like you said, there's some of the guys that starting to show more than just a flash of what they're potentially able to provide us, and they're starting to become a little more consistent as we get near the end of the season here over the last month and a half of change.
Yep, and it just seems that as quickly as we start to see the glimpse of the team getting more and more healthy, it just seems like in that same breath, someone's going down with injury. And that's pretty much just been a tale of the season as we've kind of fall further and further out of the the wild card race. But I'm gonna allow you, post break. I'm about to take a break, but I'm gonna allow you to kind of touch base on all those injuries and possible controversial takes regarding injuries as well. But we'll be back on the other side of this quick break. All right, Coach, who do we have on the roster and injury front?
All right, in terms of fresh injuries going back to last week, Monday, Well, more of an update first for the injury because that was more recent, the injury that is. So August 6th, Kerry Carpenter, and then August 8th for Casey Mize. Both of them were sent down. I shouldn't say sent down. They went down to Toledo to start rehab assignments based on some of the updates we saw over the weekend. I think both those guys should be close, of course. Casey having been moved to that 60-day DL back just a few weeks ago. He's probably going to have a little more time down there to kind of get settled in, just because it'll have been, it's already been a month roughly and change. So he'll probably get a few more starts down there before he's eligible to come off. But Kerry so far looks good. I know he'll play the field a little bit too at some point, along with DHing. So hoping to have Kerry back. I would hope for at least a series or two prior to the end of August. So we'll see. That's kind of a game to game or almost 48 hour to 40 hour like update from the team on his condition. And then as we all know, just over the weekend, they recalled Akil Padu after Winsell Perez had an oblique strain. Honestly, it looked fairly innocent. He said he couldn't swing, but based on his discussions with the trainer and AJ said that there's actually a more than decent chance that he might not come back for the rest of the year, based on that. So, and some of the article I had read on it or the excerpt of it, he knew it right away in the at bat, but I don't understand why he didn't take himself out in that at bat. I mean, he gave away 2 at bats. Granted, I shouldn't say gave away. He was basically going to be, lifeless in the box. He couldn't swing, and he was lucky to get a walk one time, but he took strike 3 that same at bat right down the middle for strike 3 looking. So, again, he's a true rookie, but if you can't swing the bat, hell, if you can't even put the bat out to bunt, I mean, you got to take yourself out. You can't be giving away free outs like that at the major league level. But we'll see. Sounds like we may not even have an update on him until maybe Labor Day weekend potentially, or even later. So, again, it's a position of corner outfield. We've said we've had the most bloated depth on, even going down to Toledo. And now here we are. We've got, granted, we got Parker back, and now we lose Perez, who's been a pretty consistent fill-in, some timely hits and speed. But, kind of getting back to the Casey Mize situation, for those that weren't aware, when he was placed on the IL, originally it was 30 days. He was going to come back. He was nearing his return and everything. Everything was good. His rehab assignment went well. And then I believe right around the trade deadline, kind of when this all went down, they moved him to the 60-day IL to make room for another call-up. I forget specifically who it was for, but there was only a one sentence or two at most quote that they got from Casey about it, and it at the time sounded maybe fairly professional, like, oh, I wish I could be there to the boys, I want to be able to pitch again and help them. I know I can. I've been working on some things because he's had a little bit of an underwhelming year at times. Right. He's got a little bit of a bloated ERA. He's had some rough goes, but I think there's still something there that can be grown upon. But now it's starting to become a little more loud in the background, if you will, in terms of media platforms, that he was absolutely pissed. And that move allegedly was made without informing him or talking to him first at all. AJ and I guess those, the front office basically said, nope, this is what we're going to do. And, I guess too bad, paraphrasing there. Again, that's just speculation, but the original rumor has gained some traction in terms of, all these unofficial anonymous sources that, writers and whatnot have with, could be someone on the staff, could be a player, a bench player that, obviously he's not going to get named for obvious reasons, but, I kind of think maybe he is getting screwed a little bit. If guy's ready and healthy to come back, I mean, he's got 1 year left in this deal. He's making a little over $800,000 this year. and he's got a club option for $3.1 million heading into the offseason that they could pick up, or they can just buy him out for $10,000 and go to arbitration and take their chances. So I think pretty sure that where we've been talking the last month or two about Ilitch and spending, I hate to want to say that is true. I hope it isn't, because if that is true in any way, shape, or form, you're really hurting your ability to bring in guys on the free agency that, sure, buy as might or get paid. But, if those type of decisions are being made, and this, Casey's not 32 years old, 33 years old. He's not Jack Flaherty. He's still in his prime. He's a guy that, they have for cheap right now. It's a guy that you would want out there eating innings if he can. So kind of leads you to question what is really actually going on. If he's saying he's out, and it's not the first time in, pro sports we've heard this kind of go down. We look at the Chiefs last year in the NFL, and the receiver could catch, and they basically just said, no, they probably faked an injury to put him on the report so he couldn't play in the postseason, because he was just absolutely horrendous in the regular season. The name is eluding me right now, but I don't think that necessarily matters. I think most of you guys who follow NFL kind of know who I'm referring to in that regard. But, that's just not a good look outward in to the Tigers organization if that's the case. So still looking forward to Mize coming back. But let me hear your thoughts, Foster.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's yet another. Was he a one guy?
No, he wasn't.
Just a first round. He was a first round pick, though, right?
Well, he was the number 1 overall.
You say he was the number 1 overall?
No.
Okay. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it's just another one of those guys that had a lot of promise. A lot of buzz going into the draft.
Oh, he was. Sorry, I disregarded that. He was.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A couple years before Torque, but it's just when you get the unanimous number 1 guy. Granted, baseball drafts are a crapshoot, but this was this guy fell into the key players going into the year. When I was kind of looking back on it, and he just had a slow start, and then he's had an injury that's pretty much kept him out for a lot of the second half of the year. So he's just going to be a big question mark going into next year, whether or not whether or not they decide to exercise that option. But it just seemed the year kind of seemed to sour from the very beginning, just because of the whole arbitration over $10,000, and so it just seemed like it was a bad start to the year in general. But hopefully he can get back and and be able to create some type of momentum or leave the season on a better foot. So, but we will see. I think he started his rehab. His rehab started. I'm not sure exactly what team, if it's in Lakeland or where it was, but I think he had a pretty good rehab outing, which is encouraging, if nothing else. But that parlays into our series down on the farm. Thayron Lorenzo, the catcher that we received along with Sweeney in the LA Dodger deal, had a good game over the week. He went 4 for 4 with a home run and a double, and 2 RBIs. He's looking pretty good on both sides of the plate, hitting wise, and steadily improving defensively. I think a lot of people are still possibly thinking that he might be better off at the first base position, but obviously not something to harp on at the low A level at this point. Interesting story, Gage Workman. This guy's name is Gage Tater Workman, which is just amazing. Just an amazing baseball name, but
100% a baseball name.
Yeah, but he's exactly. So he's a middle infielder for the AA Erie, and over the weekend he went 3 for 6, 7 RBIs, all 3 hits were home runs. This is a guy that has had a sneakily good year thus far. He's also is a pretty speedy guy. He's got over 100 stolen bases in his entire minor league career, but he's got 24 thus far this year. So he's a guy that has speed, but also has the power to hit some taters as well. And yeah, he's listed as a shortstop, but he's been in the system for 3 years. He's 24 years old. He'll be 25 in October. So I don't think that he has a super high ceiling, at the next level, but quietly been coming on and doing pretty well as of late. Outside of that, Max Anderson, who's in Upper A, continues to stay hot. He went 3 for 4 on Sunday, and Trey Sweeney, the other player that was acquired along with Alonso, remains as the hottest hitter in the Tiger system right now. He's hitting 400. I think he dropped a little bit under 400, but he's hitting the balls, really hard right now. All of his hits have had an exit velocity over 100. He's got 2 home runs, a couple extra base hits to go along with that, and he remains hot in AAA. As you talked about, Kerry Carpenter has started his rehab stint, and he started pretty slow, but he's starting to get a groove going. So hopefully we get a chance to see him real soon. It'd be really cool to see him get activated in time for that Yankees series over the weekend. Obviously, we have a Sunday night nationally televised game on ESPN, and with Wensil Perez going down and Baddoo up for now, that seems to be the no-brainer replacement when it's time to bring him up. Although I do know that Baddoo is out of options, so maybe he's not. Maybe it's Ryan Velarde instead, because Baddoo would have to clear waivers if he's out of options, correct?
Yeah, he'd go to the waiver wire first. So you go to the order of worst to first. They get crack at him. I think it's usually a 24-hour period. They get that opportunity to put a claim in. If they do, then they try and work out a trade. If they can't work out a trade, they just keep going down the list all the way through in that regard. But he has, to my knowledge as well, exhausted his 2-way options.
Yeah, and something tells me that somebody's taking a crack at Akil Baddoo if given the opportunity, but I don't know. He's a respectable AAA player, struggles, for the most part at the major league level, but still young, still has some tools that teams can work off of. So there's always that risk. Although I feel like there's still, Velarde has struggled, has struggled as of late. I think he dropped under 200, and he actually on the one walk off, he had a pretty. So, tough in between play. We seem to have lost all momentum at that point, and we're likely to give up the game-winning run anyways. But it's rough when you get that in between play and you take a chance and it burns you. So, but that pretty much covers everything. Well, for one, I'll say that Max Clark has kind of quieted. I'm going to get to it because I think we may be on the same page.
Gotcha.
But Max Clark has slowed down a little bit. He's dropped under 300 for for his time in single A with West Michigan. But some pretty big news. Kevin McGonigal has, I think it looks like his season is likely over. He had a slow start when he moved up to single A, upper A as well. And it looks like he fractured a bone in his foot or something like that.
It's a hamate bone in your hand.
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming he got hit by a pitch or something in that regard. Usually, if you break a bone in your hand like that, unless you're a catcher and you take a weird foul ball, off the hand, off the ground, generally that's again, it could be wrong. I've seen no video of the injury itself, but just presuming usually that's a fairly common place when you get hit by a pitch on your hand that one of those bones or nearby bones, the hamate, breaks or fractures.
Yep. And that wraps up our Down on the Farm segment. Always interesting to keep up on that stuff, but we're going to take a quick break before we get into the final topics. All right. I saw you. We had a couple other topics related to managing and Justin Henry Malloy, but I can allow you to kind of lead the way with that one.
Yeah, so I mean the manage, the AJ situation. It's more of a, if it's not him going into next year, because this gained some traction too, a little bit more outside of the regular Detroit media coverage. He hasn't really done much with Detroit in his 3 years and change so far. I just had some guys I thought would be some interesting kind of kicking off points if he were to be let go, which personally for me, I think it's got to happen. This team has not really, some of the individuals have made legitimate progress, but for the most part, this team has struggled. They have not shown actual team improvement from last year, despite some of the other successes that brought in. Of course, they've had some equal failures as well. But I think a lot of it for me has to do with the struggles that most of the young guys have called up or been playing since last year under Hinch's staff's tutelage. It's not acceptable. I mean, these guys have been mostly in minors for a couple of years now. Now in year 2, roughly, sometime maybe 1 or 2 guys at year 3, and they're struggling as if they're true rookies. At 19, 20 years old instead of 23, 24, 25, tells me that, whatever they're doing, it ain't working. But anyways, I had some general thoughts of names I threw out there. Guy who is not coaching this year, maybe not too popular, I would say. Buck Showalter, guy with experience, playoff experience, might not be the right team for him in that regard. He's more of a coach that, if you got a team that's already been in the playoffs 1 year, all right, he might help you. Kind of like when we brought in Leland, in that regard. Get you over the hump, if you'll get you to the championship series, possibly the World Series. But other guys I think that are more in line, they coach a lot of younger guys, and they've done really well in that time when they've had young core guys. Kevin Cash down in Tampa. Again, though, he's from Tampa, or the Florida area, so I don't know if he's going to have any interest in leaving, given that team just literally gutted their almost entire roster at the trade deadline. I couldn't believe how many players they shipped out, but we know they're a small market team, so that turnover is not necessarily something new for them. Alex Cora, the Red Sox, they've kind of been, they had a good bounce back year after a horrible year last year, but I've read some things where they may want just a fresh voice to start, and I think he might be feeling the same way if they cannot make the playoffs this year. They're right in the wild card hunt. Sticking with the East Coast, a guy I didn't really like too much, but I gotta respect what he did when Washington was really good. And that's Dave Martinez. He's he's got a track record of managing young players very well. They respond to him, so those are some of the names, but yeah, unless you had any thoughts, I'm ready to go ahead and jump on to the last pair of topics I think we might spend a little more time on.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I definitely see where AJ Hinch could be could improve and could have made better decisions when it's all said and done. I do think that he's had to, you know, exercise a lot of his options with the amount of injuries and, in the amount of fluctuation between guys that, are in the minor leagues and trying to mold and create the right type of continuity necessary, between the majors and minors. But I don't know. I think at times he's kind of made something out of nothing as well, which has to evenly be taken into consideration. Because you do have, you look at the outfield and the play, you see guys still trying to get comfortable playing alongside a Parker Meadows, like a Akil Baddoo and Wenceel Perez. We've seen some, iffy, efforts in the outfield where there was some miscommunication and near collisions and things of that nature. So I don't know. I think it's been tough. I think that as far as the staff as a whole, I think Chris Fetter, who they said is a possible candidate. He's kind of like our who's the Lions offense coordinator? Johnson, what's his name? Ben Johnson.
Ben Johnson.
So
Yeah.
like Chris Fetter is our Ben Johnson. He's a guy that's kind of made a lot of things shake as far as our pitching staff, with the amount of moving pieces as far as that's concerned too. So, if nothing else, I think that's been I don't know who was in charge of bringing him in, but I think he's done a lot to develop and improve our pitching staff and keeping us in a lot of games where we were only scoring 2-3 runs a game. So, I don't think I would be just up in arms if they made it a move at the managerial position, but I would like it to be amongst a certain class of manager. I don't think you make that move just to make that move. I think you really go out and see if you can find somebody that makes sense, if nothing else. But that's pretty much all I have to say about the managerial stuff. Did you want to touch? You know what? Let's take a break, and then we'll get to the last topic. All right. We know you've been very, very vocal about how you feel about Torkelson and whether or not we want to cut ties and move forward on that situation. Any further opinions on that situation as the year dwindles down and we get down to the nitty gritty?
Yeah, it was just more in response to an article I saw in the Detroit Free Press over the weekend, and I don't understand. Title was Detroit should call up Torkelson. He's been decent at Toledo. And you look at the numbers in the comments too, which we shared offline. The comments were laughable at this suggestion. Like, unless you're just so decimated with injuries and whatnot.
We are kind of.
He's had, yeah, not so much at the first baseman position now, but. He'd had some minor moments where he would show what he had done in the back half of last year at the major league level, pump out a few home runs, but then just as much as you think, maybe, just maybe he's found it, then he goes ice cold for another 5-6 games straight. Ice cold. And that's, no one's going to pay the type of money that he might be deserving of based on his talent alone, but he's performing as bad as Javi Baez. Like, no one's paying you that kind of money next year.
That's a bad example, bro. They're making 25 to what, less than $1 million.
I know. I'm just saying though, like, you're talking about a guy who at the time when we drafted him was considered the best hitter ever to play college baseball in the United States. Think about that.
Yeah.
So and then you look, and I just pulled up some numbers. Okay, let me see what he's done more recently. Maybe he has had a little bit of a hot streak. Maybe he's batting 270, 280, 290 with some consistent power. And I don't just mean hitting home runs, but doubles, maybe a triple. Extra base hit power, because that's what we drafted him to do. And I'm sorry, but he has been batting pretty just as bad as he was in Detroit. Last 15 games, a buck 38, 194 OBP, 276 slugging. He was 8 for 58 with 2 home runs, both of them solos, 2 RBIs. I mean, and he's 18 strikeouts to 3 walks, 6-1 strikeouts to walks. I mean, last 30 games, not much difference. 184, 283 OBP, or OBP, 351 slugging, a little bit better, but I think that was also tied to some of the days where he had multiple home runs. But I don't see why we should be calling him back up. He's performing just as bad, if not worse, in Toledo overall since his time down there than in Detroit this year. We already have enough guys struggling. He's been struggling. If he's still struggling in Toledo, what about his numbers tell you otherwise? Because you already know that we already heard the rumors that he was absolutely defiant about not changing anything and not working with the coaching staff down there in Toledo to fix anything.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I mean, the one thing that I've seen in keeping up with him from day to day is the fact that it's always a tale. It's pretty inconsistent. It's always a tale of either he's, going 4 for 4 or 3 for 4 and hitting a home run, or he's going 0 for 4 and striking out 3 times. It just kind of depends on, I don't know what he had for breakfast that morning. Which makes you feel like it's not going to translate well once you get to the next level, especially because there is such a gap in between the talent between AAA and the professional level. If there was such a log jam of guys at first base, I would maybe feel a little different about it. Bligh Madris, I think that he's been pretty good, although he started out super, super hot, which helped his numbers now because he's now dropped not only under 300, but he's hitting 111 in his last 7 games and 257, which is solid in his last 15. He's playing great defense, which I love, but I think that at this point where we're not playing for a playoff spot, we're not worried about that. You say that, we have a lot of players that are struggling right now, but at this point, why not exercise all opportunities to see what I don't know what it hurts. He's not taking away. The only at bats he's taking away from maybe is Malloy, because Malloy is a DH. So if you want to continue to give Madris, mind you, Bligh Madris is 28 years old, so he's the same age as Rogers. And this is his first, for the most part, if you're somebody that's likely to be in a team's future, you would have got your first heavy set of at-bats sooner than this year at the age of 28. I don't know if he turned 28 this year or he's turning 29 this year, depending on when his birthday is. So he's a guy that's had plenty, Madris has had ample opportunities to show what he can do if he's going to be an everyday player on somebody's team. So I don't think that you hold precedent. At the end of the day, Torque is 4 years younger than him, and he's done way more at the major league level. So I don't think that you worry about the fact that you're taking at bats away from anybody but Malloy in a DH type situation. Other than that, you really don't have anything to lose. And the blessing is that he could come up and just take off. Granted, you say, if he takes off at the end of this year, you don't hold stock in a grand scheme of things. But I think having him ride it out at the AAA level for the rest of the year when he has had hot spurts is kind of a waste, in my opinion. But I'll let you, if you have anything else.
I mean, the only thing that I could think of that really would be a negative is if he continues to skid, if he gets called up. I really do. I think you're going to hear fans really give it to him. I mean, you're supposed to.
You think so? You really think? I think that. I honestly think. I think that the crowd. You mean if he struggles when he gets back, or when the reception when he first gets
back and he continues to struggle and just things just don't look any different
Yeah.
You know, like the same old, same old. Nothing from the last 3 months of 3.5 months of last year. It's just a lot of what we saw back in the spring from him. I think you're going to see fans really get on him because he's on his way out. This is the last. He had a 1-year deal for next to nothing. Um, the only thing I could think of if he were to get called up is if a team was interested in maybe trading, because we would still get something from him if he were to walk. We
Are you
still would get a
surprised
conditional pick.
Are you
But
surprised he didn't get? Are you surprised he didn't get paid last year? Like
we,
a sizable future contract type situation as opposed to a 1 year.
well, no, he was only good for 3 months. That's it. Like,
That's solid.
and he got sent down 2 years ago. So no, I think this is, even if they paid him, I mean, I would have been fine with like $1 million. Like, if we're talking just a couple hundred extra $1,000, I wouldn't be up in arms about it. But I mean, the guy has been woefully inconsistent.
Yeah,
And I'm
he
sorry,
wasn't
but
good.
the last 3 months of last year when he got hot, they weren't playing for shit. They were so far behind it didn't matter.
That's true.
So yeah, it was window dressing. It looked nice at the end of the year because they kind of got back in, but they were never actually a threat to make it.
No,
They were so far behind that they need an extra 30 games at that pace to maybe be knocking on the door, 1 or 2 games back. But that's it. You only get to 162 games, and if you waffle around, you give away the first 85, 90 games, and you're 20 games back. Yeah, you're not playing for anything. But again, you look at the year to year, last year to this year. At the same point now as they were last year, they're pretty much right on the same. And he's not with them at this point right now, and hasn't been. And they've honestly played a bit better without him. So yeah, again, the only thing I think of negative is if they bring him up and he continues to struggle, I think fans are going to get on him. And I think, frankly, it's justified. This team has failed the players to blossom them into the franchise cornerstone pieces that we drafted them to be. And we said Casey Mize could be the next one up potentially, but as far as Torkelson, I mean, like you said, you get an injury or Malloy's not really a true first baseman. He can't, he had that weird shoulder injury. Can't throw from the outfield much anymore. So you're down bad when you have 2 corner outfielders playing the out corner together, and Perez and Malloy, and neither one of them are great arms. That is troubling. Now, it's not the organization's fault that they incurred these injuries, obviously, but when your other guys, your other number 1 picks, 1 or 2 miss in a 3-4 year span, dude, that can set a team back a few years. Because this is a guy you're kind of on a position to be steady for a while and to rely on and lean on. And they don't have that right now in their first base. And hell, we don't know who's going to be their first baseman next year. But I can tell you right now, it's not going to be Spencer Torkelson.
No, not at this point. We'll take one more break and then we're gonna wrap up. All right, so you kind of just barely kind of grazed over Malloy. Did you have any other things that you wanted to talk about as far as Malloy is concerned?
I mean, with you and I we've seen a decent amount from him, right, over the last 2+ months, roughly. So pretty much the bulk of the summer months. Again, alluding to that injury, he plays very limited in the field as a result. So he's largely been a DH, but it's like, okay, if he's a DH, you kind of expect him to, start eventually at some point, start putting up some numbers and some consistency, or at least some what Torkelson has done down in Toledo, where he goes off for a game or 2 in a series and completely dominates. We've yet to really see that from Malloy. I know he hit 2 home runs in the first, I think, series coming out of the All-Star break, right, back-to-back games. And then he basically disappeared for like 3 or 4 series and didn't have a home run again until just the last 10 days or last week he had a home run. That's weeks without much power. And just look at some of the numbers, small sample size in the West Coast trip. He was 2 of 18 with 2 walks, 2 of 18 with 1 double, so a single and a double. 11 strikeouts, only 2 walks, and 1 run, no RBIs. I mean, do you think from what you've seen as a whole from him this year is he a legitimate future piece and probably going to play majority DH going forward? I would assume with some spot starts in the outfield.
Yeah, I think the fact that he has shown potential to be a solid power hitter. I would love for him to cut down on his strikeouts and improve on hitting fastballs. I think that would do him a lot of justice. But as of right now, I think that the fact that he doesn't play good defense is only going to hurt him. Granted, he's only 24 years old. He turned 24 in February, so he won't be 25 until like the top of next year. But I do want to see more. I don't know if his defense is going to get any better, so it's going to be imperative that he cuts down on his swing. I've seen the potential where he's kind of gone with the pitch and not try to Deadpool try to hit everything out of the park. In some instances, but yeah, I mean, I think that he's played well enough to compete for a outfield, a outfield / DH position, but I don't think that he's solidified anything because you look at Parker Meadows, Riley Green, Carpenter. That's 3 outfielders right there. You throw Wenzel Perez into the bunch, he's on the borderline. And then Vierling is kind of going back and forth between the outfield and third base position. So, yeah, I think he's definitely on the borderline. I love the fact that he has the threat to hit the ball out of the ballpark because we have so few guys that bring that to the table. But when you're hitting nearly under 200, it's not.
I would say like
quite
this:
enough.
if he was hitting 200 with the power that Schwarber's been having the last few years,
Well,
lead off spot. Yeah, 30
for
runs,
sure.
200 average. I'll take it. But
and maybe if he plays a full year, he has 20 plus home runs, which is cool. But yeah, it's nothing that I'm just ready to say, sign him up for a full year of baseball just for the, with the major league team, just because he can only hit. He can't really play defense. I'm scared to see what he looks like at the major league level at the third base position. And in the outfield, I don't think I've seen just, god awful outfield play from him, but he also doesn't do it very often for a particular reason. So, so yeah, he's on the borderline. I think that as far as the free agency level, we don't have anybody. We don't have anybody that's coming in from AAA to threaten things. I think we do still need to go and try to get a bat, a consistent everyday bat in the outfield if we want to improve our just improve our lineup in general. I don't think that you just say, oh yeah, Justin Henry, he's good for next year. I don't think he's done enough. We saw what Torkelson did. He hit 30 home runs in a half in one half of baseball, and he's done nothing. And Henry and Malloy can't even say he did that. So, so yeah, I think that there's still work to be done, but he's also one thing that we didn't get a chance to mention is the fact that in all realistically, he's batted in that 3-hole, 4-hole, 5-hole.
Yeah.
If he was batting in the 6, 7, 8-hole with some protection from a Riley Green or a Carpenter, not even both of them. Although, realistically, there will be both those guys in the lineup every night. Even if it's just one of them, he might be a little better off, because my whole thing is this. You just don't have the same protection, when you're in the 3-hole as a rookie hitter that already had holes in a swing to begin with. So he hasn't been put in the best scenario to be successful. So I think that's one thing to consider as well, is that a Riley Green and a Carpenter could provide some level of protection for him.
No, I agree. I think at this point right now, if the season were in today, I would think he would have to he would have to earn it in spring training and camp next year in terms of a 25-man roster spot. I do think along with Perez heading into next year, granted any free agency changes or signings that may keep some of those, longer, I don't want to say minor league lifers, but, guys like Bly, Madris, and, that might just, those signings may end up permanently keeping those guys down there unless it's purely based out of need, which unfortunately, it's been a lot this year, but, I think maybe he might benefit too from a little bit time being a more regular DH down in Toledo potentially. I would just hate for a guy like that to be, because he's got, he'll have 2 more years options under control, but you would hate to see a guy of that caliber originally when you got him, when you acquired him, to just bounce back and forth, 3-4 times in a year. It's hard for a guy. I mean, yeah, we're lucky. Toledo is within a stone's throw of Detroit, so
Right.
it's not like he's got to travel 4 states across, get on a plane.
Right.
I mean, I can drive up 75 and be there in an hour and change, but it doesn't provide much comfortability for a guy like that young, when he's constantly having to go up and down, or he's not sure, what's going to happen month to month. But so I would like to see, because what's the other thing too? If he makes it as a fringe player next year out of spring training, he might, he's going to lose some at bats over games. So would he benefit more from playing every day and batting almost every day in Toledo versus playing, maybe one or more games in a series at the major league level, like you said, just due to the log jam? But because some of those other guys, you're gonna need days off. They're gonna rotate guys in the field defensively, and if they've got a hot bat, well, that very well mean that Malloy might not get that 1 in 3 series at the DH spot. So I think that's right now, that's kind of a good problem for them to have right now, like you said. But with the limitations on defense, he's gonna have to turn around the bat.
Yeah. And the beauty is that he hasn't had to be sent down because just a combination of all the other injuries and the fact that he's had enough spurts of success to where you can't really justify sending him down. But yeah, eventually, as we get more healthy and some of our guys come back, he's gonna have to earn his keep. So we're coming up on 50 plus minutes. Any parting words or anything to look forward to going into next week?
It's going to be some interesting teams here. We're going to see the Mariners again, kind of pivoting the schedule a little bit in terms of what's upcoming here, who we're going to see. You got the Yankees coming down, like you mentioned, although we are losing a game, a true home game in that, because they will be playing over at the Little League World Series in Williamsport, as they do every year. It's a partnership with
I forgot about
Little
that.
League. So that nationally televised game on ESPN will be at Williamsport, not at Comerica Park. Should still be fun for the kids. I think all the teams that make it there, I think, get a free admission ticket as part of the whole experience in the new, I should say, more revived recently partnership between Major League Baseball and Little League World Series. And then in turn 2, you'll get an MLB umpire that will work a day or 2 over at Little League World Series in Williamsport as well. So again, they're bringing in multiple facets of the professional level to the kids. Of course, coaches love to go out there and say, hey, I'm not arguing with the call. I just wanted to talk to you. They've had the years past, Alan Porter and Chris Guccione, guys who are respectable crew chiefs now, currently at the major league level. Showing my inner umpire nerd right now. Obviously, but,
right.
It's cool to see, and obviously the kids are going to see that too. They're not going to see some 65-year-old volunteer guy that's doing it because he loves the game. You guys, you have umpires going to be carrying themselves with some class and whatnot, and they're going to be able to let their guard down a little bit. It's not as serious. They're still on national TV as always, but it's a nice little dynamic to step back. And for some of those guys, they maybe played in the Little League World Series or a Little League team in that tournament. So, some moments of nostalgia, if you will. So, yeah, you got the Mariners, Yankees, turn around. You've got a couple series against the Chicago teams that just played each other this past week. Cubs had a little bit of a revival briefly. Kind of fell off more recently since the All-Star break as well. But, always fun when the Cubs come to town and we go out to Wrigley, and then we finish kind of a weird schedule. We've got 4 Friday to Monday after the Cubs against I should say, at Chicago for the White Sox on the south side. But yeah, we'll see. Like you said, newer faces, guys going to continue to get ABs and appearances. Kind of want to see the bullpen kind of tighten it up a little bit, and just, it is what it is at this point. If we get Carpenter and Green back in the next few weeks here, who knows? Maybe they could end again on another little, nice little streak to end the year and provide some momentum and some positives heading into the winter off season.
And we got our Bears affiliate and Chicago affiliate Pay in the building. He heard Cubs and his ears peaked up out of all things, whatever. But yeah, of course, we always appreciate to see a familiar face tuning in. But yeah, we got the Mariners who we just played on the West Coast. They're coming to visit us, and then we got the Yankees, and we will be back on either Sunday or Monday to recap the week. And stay tuned, because we definitely have some player profiles coming out. I would say overall at least 4 player profiles coming. So please subscribe to Bleachers to Speakers on YouTube to see the visual portion if you want to see our faces. And also you'll get a notification for the audio portion as well when you tune into Corner to Copa. So yeah, stay tuned. We got a lot more action as we close up the year. We're out.
Peace.